Hey everybody, this is Paige from Mosaic Moments, and today I'm showing you an awesome die collection called Crisscross. Right now I'm holding the 4x6 size, and of course it has all these neat intricate lines in there. This die comes with these two little triangles to help you fill these tinier spaces easier than having to roll the entire large die through the machine. Alright, there's also this 3x3 crisscross die. And also the 3x4 here, kind of looks like a big triangle in the middle there. And there's also these two triangle dies that come with that one that help you fill in these two corner pieces much easier. And the last set I'm going to show you is the 2x4 set. It comes with these two dies, so you would use one or the other when you're creating a layout. And it also comes with this little die here that helps you create 4 of those tiny little triangles you can fill in the 2x4 and in this 3x3 size. Alright, now that you have been introduced to the dies, let's get started with the demo. In order to use the crisscross dies, you will of course need a die machine. I am using the Revolution from We Are Memory Keepers. Alright, so first you want to use, for all of these dies, you want to use a piece of cardstock or paper that's a little bit larger than the die itself. I usually take my scissors and cut around the paper, or put my die on the paper and then cut around it to make sure I have enough. Alright, and then I place my die on top. I have a magnetic plate here so the die will stick down. If you do not have a magnetic plate, you can of course use washi tape. I do have my die in at an angle also. I'm trying to straighten it out here to make sure it'll cut through my paper properly. Alright, so now I have my plastic plate on top. And again, what I was going to say is I have it in diagonally because we find that if you have the die going straight through, it doesn't cut very easily. Putting it in through sideways helps distribute that pressure from the die machine much better. Alright, so once you're done, you will have a cut, and you're going to want to save the frame piece. There's all those pieces in between. We can just discard those. We won't need those this time. So you want to save this larger frame piece that I'm going to show you here that sits with inside the die itself. So make sure to save that piece, or else it'll be a little bit more difficult to place your photos inside them. Alright, I'm going to speed things up here because basically for the rest of the dies it's the same directions. Here I have the 3x4 die, again keeping that frame piece. You're going to cut with this one twice for your layout. Next I'm cutting with the 2x4 die. Again, you're going to cut with this one 2 times. There's 2 different dies, and today I'm using this particular one for my layout. And last, after I clean up here, I'm cutting with the 3x3 size. This one you'll actually be cutting 4 times to create your layout. So easy. Make sure you keep those frame pieces every time. So right now I'm going to be cutting what I call a base piece. The platform isn't very long in this machine, so it's easy for it to fall out. So I grabbed a die from the basic die set that's the same exact size as the 4x6 crisscross. So it'll be the 4x6 die in set B. And I'm going to cut this background piece. So in a moment I'm going to show you how this base piece will work. The next step is you're going to glue on the back of each piece. So I just grabbed a piece of cardstock here so I don't get glue on the table or on my grid paper. I'm first using gluing down the 4x6 crisscross die with my Herma Dotto dispenser, and I'm just gluing a little bit here and there around the sides and the corners. I'm going to get this outer rectangle, and then I'm going to get the inner part of the rectangle as well around this diamond. There's a lot of different ways you can glue down your dies. This is the way I do it. If you have any suggestions you would like to share with the community, please share them below. I'm sure a lot of people will find your tips helpful about gluing down these dies, because for many people it is a little tricky. Mainly I say take your time as you're gluing them down. So this is my base piece. I just glued the back of it, and I'm going to go ahead and stick that down first. So the benefit of the base piece for dies like this one, so the crisscross dies are pretty thin. If you look at the lines here, they're really thin. What happens is sometimes when I place it right on the grid paper, it gets kind of warped, it's kind of hard to line up. And the nice thing about having the base piece is it helps the die become, it gives it a more sturdy base, hence why it's called a base piece. So I just picked it up and I'm repositioning it because I saw I didn't stretch it out long enough. So the nice thing about the base piece is I can visually see how much, if my die is keeping its shape. That's really the benefit of the base piece is you make sure these thin dies keep their shape and again helps them be sturdy. You don't have to use them. I know it's an extra step to cut all these background pieces, but I wanted to show you and talk about the benefit. In this case, some of my base piece is going to show through the die as well. All right, now I get to move on to the next sizes. Right here I have the 3x4 size, and just like before, I'm using my glue and just gluing here and there around the corners, around the edges, and make sure you glue down that inner piece. So I just realized I had my 4x6 die on the wrong direction. So yes, it could go either way. It could go horizontal or vertical, and I wanted mine to be vertical, so I fixed that. Anyway, so the 3x4 die is going right next to it. And so those lines should line up just like that. So make sure the two triangles are on the same side as the 4x6 die. And then, like I said, pretty much the side where the lines are should be next to where the lines are on the 4x6 die. All right, so far that looks really cool. Already got some crisscross designs. All right, so this is the 3x3 size, and you're going to want to pay attention to where those little triangles are going to go. So again, you want to make sure that the little triangle lines up with the line that makes the triangle lines up with the line on the 3x4 die. In this case, the 3x4 die is below it, and you can see how those two line up. And same thing on the bottom here. The line on the 3x3 lines up with that 3x4 every time. So not too hard. Again, just make sure that those lines line up together, and if they don't, that means you have it in the wrong direction. So I think it's pretty simple. All right, so next is the 2x4 dies. I just want to show you this one real quick. I'm not using this one for my layout, but I'm showing you this is the way or the direction you would put it on your page. So you can see all three of those dies, the 4x6, the 3x3, and the 2x4, all those lines that cross through them line up. So that's the direction you need to put it, is the way the lines line up with each other. On this 2x4 die I'm using, it doesn't really matter which direction because there's lines on both sides. All right, so I just glued this one down as well, again around each little corner and on the sides as well. And of course, it lines up perfectly. That's what's neat about this. The Crisscross and the X Factor, for that matter, they have these awesome lines that line up together. So they make really amazing layouts. So this is what you should get at the end, is a page that looks like this, and you can also rotate it so it's horizontal, or the 4x6 is horizontal. I want it to be vertical today, so the layout could go either way. Now I'm going to start cutting my photos, which I have a lot of them today. So first I'm going to create the focal point for my 4x6 die here. Just so you know, if you want your photograph to fill in that entire die space right here, you will need a 5x7, but a 4x6 can fill in that inside rectangle space. So you can fill that in with a 4x6 photograph. For today, I'm just going to take this center diamond area. I just want my dog. She's not in center enough for me to use that entire photograph. You can see on the top where it would get cut off. And I won't get those two little triangle pieces on the side. My photograph's a little too short, but it will get this middle section here. All right, this time I'm using the crease pad. So when I was using the paper, I was using the plastic plate. And to avoid getting the creased edges, I'm using the crease pad for my photos. All right, I rolled it through, And all I really need is this middle section here. So I'm going to pull that out, and yes, the photos do stick together, which later on we'll see that it's actually pretty nice that it does that. But for now, I can just peel the section up I want, and now you can see how it fits on my layout. Something to keep in mind is to pay attention to which way your die is cutting the photograph. In this case, I needed my die to be vertical, but if you're going horizontally, make sure you're cutting the die, or the die is facing horizontally on your photograph, because it won't make the same shape both ways. So keep that in mind when you're cutting your photo. Up next is the 3x4 crisscross die. So I'm putting my die on top of the section I'm going to cut. So to make sure that when I cut the die on the photo, it's going in the direction I need it to fit on my page, or else my subject's going to be upside down, and none of us want that. So always double check, take your time, and make sure the die is going to be cutting in the direction you want it, because you don't want to have to reprint your photograph. All right, now roll it through the machine, and now I can just keep, this time I'm just keeping this larger piece, so that was easy to peel up and go. And now I'm going to be cutting the second photograph, except I turned the die in the opposite direction, so now the lines are on the right side of my photograph. And I made sure my subject was on the left portion. So the crisscross dies, it's definitely important to plan out your photographs before you get started to make sure your subjects are going to fit within those spaces the way you want. In this case, my subjects were a little bit further away, so I had a lot of flexibility on where I could place these photos on my page. All right, now that I have these two cuts, they fit in these two 3x4 spaces, and now you have an idea of how they should look. Up next is the 3x3 die, and you will also, of course, need to pay attention to which direction this die is going to cut on your photograph. All right, so I have the blade face up, but I really want it to be face down because that's the direction I'm going to cut on my photograph. All right, so I do have the two triangles in the place I need. So it's important to pay attention to that when you're cutting with this particular die. And you can place it on the part of the photograph you want to crop. And then I roll it through the machine just like the other times, right? And then I can pick it up, and I just need to keep this center piece here, which is actually a pretty large area. All right, so I'm going to keep doing this 3 more times. This time I'm switching the die in the opposite direction. So generally it's going to be one direction or the other direction. So pay attention. You can always put the die on your page to make sure it's going to cut in the direction you want. So that's the key every time. Place it on top, and then make sure it's in the same direction when you're putting it over your photograph to cut, which I'm doing here. All right, I'm using the crease pad as usual. So far, I really like the crisscross dies because I actually feel like they leave a lot of space for your photo. My subject, she happened to be really far away in my photographs, so I had a lot of flexibility on where to put them. But if you had closer up objects, it actually could fit pretty well on the crisscross design, in my opinion. Maybe more so than the Diamond Mine and X Factor. All right, so now I'm attempting to put my photographs in the spaces here so you can get an idea of what they look like. All right, so that was the 3x3 die. Next is a 2x2, which is a lot more straightforward, really. For this one, you either need to put it in vertically or horizontally, and obviously my layout, it's in the horizontal direction, so either way, or it doesn't really matter which way I have the die as long as it's horizontal in this case. All right, so I have my 2 photos here, and I'm ready to stick them on the layout. This is my favorite part of making the page, I think, because it's the most satisfying. And it's the easiest. Pretty much once you get it cut, all you have to do is glue on the back of each piece and then stick it in the area it can go in. So pretty straightforward on how to glue these pieces down here. And the repositionable glue is really nice, especially when you do what I did and I didn't get the piece in quite as good as I could have. Sometimes you accidentally get it in crooked or it doesn't quite make it, so it's nice to have that repositional glue so you can stick it up and put it back in correctly. Alright, so now all of these main photographs are finished, but I need to fill in the rest of these little spaces with the extra dies that come in these sets here. So I'm going to be using a lot of my triangle pieces here to fill in the rest. So I grabbed one of my photos here I considered this a more decorative photograph because there's no particular subject, it's just these beautiful snowy trees. And right now I'm sticking the two triangles and the two corners here. I just figured that's the easiest to lay them out. What I suggest is using a photograph that's kind of like this one, where it's easy to blend it together when it goes on the final page so that it may not entirely matter which way the triangles are going. And I stuck that really small one that makes the 4 little triangles on there as well. So that's what's nice about these being so small, is you can use more than one at the same time. And since we all know the photos stick together, all I did was just move the dies in the opposite directions. So now I have the 2 triangles in the opposite corners of where they were, and I'm just going to move this little one. This one gets stuck pretty easily, by the way, so take your time, and then I'm going to just put it in a different position. Alright, so now I can roll it through again. So that's what's nice, and I'll show you in a minute why yet you may forget, so don't forget, don't peel up these photos right away because it's going to be handy for you later to keep them all stuck together. Alright, so I have all those triangles that I need, but I still need to cut with this little one 2 more times. So again, I'm just putting it in different spots. The only thing you want to make sure of, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but you just want to make sure you don't accidentally overlap your different cuts and then you can't really use it right. So take your time and make sure you're not cutting over an area you already cut through. Alright, this is my last cut. And I gotta get that one up. Okay, now you can see all the little cut marks on the back here. And I'm not going to peel these up quite yet, so keep it all together. Next, these are the 2 smaller triangles that come with the 4x6 crisscross die. And this is actually one of the leftover photos I had used earlier. And these triangles happen to fit in this bottom portion. So that's one thing I like to do, is keep, even if you cut through my photographs, you never know. You may want to use it for these smaller spaces. So don't throw these photographs away quite yet after you use it for your main photos. So I got those 2 little pieces, and now I'm going to cut another photograph with this 4x6 to get these 4 corners here in the inner rectangle section. And I think it was easier for me to just cut through the whole photograph and not cut them into each individual little pieces or something. So I'm just going to roll it through with the whole entire photograph. And once you get done, again, just keep it together. And I'll show you why in a moment, why it's handy to keep all the little pieces attached together. So now I'm going to be cutting my last little photographs here. This is another leftover photo that I used earlier, and I'm just going to cut this in half. So I'm just going to cut these tiny little pieces that are next to my diamond center. And I just realized I had the die going in the wrong direction. It's actually easier to cut those smaller pieces when the die is facing up, but I just remembered, oh yeah, I need to have the die facing down. So I tried to put the little photographs in the sections they needed to go. You can also use washi tape and stick it on the back of the die if beforehand to make sure you have those photographs in the correct space. Alright, now I peel these up, and again, I'm not taking these little pieces out because it'll make it easier to glue down in a moment. Alright, now I have all my little pieces, and I'm going to glue them, and you're going to see this is why it's important to keep the photos attached to the main photograph, because it's so much easier to glue them than gluing each separate little piece, right? So keep it together. Don't peel these triangles up until after you glue them down, because it'll be so much easier for you. So now I'm just gonna fill in the rest of the spaces with my triangles in the areas where they can fit, of course. So I have my 4 bigger triangles down, and now I'm gonna fill in the space with these tiny little triangles. All right, I'm gonna fill this in, and all right. This is why I like to use a photograph like the one I have, because it doesn't really matter which way I rotate the little triangles here. You can't tell that any of it's upside down or sideways or something like that. Alright, now I have these 2 smaller triangles that fit in this 4x6 size, and then I have these 4 corner sections. And again, both times it was easier to glue them down versus if I took out each little piece and then tried to glue it. We all know that takes a little more time. And again, same thing with these tiny pieces, so much easier when you leave it all stuck together. Alright, that completes today's demo. I really love the crisscross die. It makes an amazing layout, and there's so much potential you can do with these dies. So I'm sure there's going to be more future videos of how to create different pages with this one. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this demo, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, because we don't want you to miss out on future demos. There's so much to learn about Mosaic Moments pages. Alright, I hope you have fun scrapping at home, especially with the crisscross die. It's amazing. And I'll see you next time.